It's no secret that Windbreaker is basically a polished copy of Tokyo Revengers. Almost everything Tokyo Revengers does wrong, I swear Windbreaker does right. Starting off with the biggest difference between Windbreaker and Tokyo Revengers is the protagonist. I don't hate Takemichi, but Sakura is just a much better character and protagonist. Especially in a delinquent type setting, because the most annoying thing about Takemichi is the fact that he cannot fight when it's a fighting manga. And I would understand if he was only weak at the very start of the story and then gradually over the course of the story and over time he would get stronger and stronger, but he doesn't. Takemichi goes through countless amounts of gang fights but somehow never gets better at fighting. He always stays weak for the whole entire series. Towards the end of the story, he does become strong because he gains the ability to see the future. So every single time he is fighting a opponent, he can just go into the future, see what they're gonna do, and then just counterattack whatever they do, and that's how he wins the fights. It's just not fun. Like, they're just not fun fights. The reason that I read Tokyo Revengers was because I want to see these characters throw hands, do crazy things to each other, and just beat the absolute shit out of each other, because it's fun to watch. But it's hard to enjoy the manga when the main character gets his ass beat in every single fight, cries about it, and then has to be rescued by either Mikey or Draken 99% of the time. It makes the main character really not that likable. But on the other hand, Sakura right off the bat is a badass. He's a great fighter, and within the first 5 minutes of us meeting Sakura, he takes down 5 grown men pretty easily. And later in season 1, he goes toe-to-toe with Togame, which is the second in command of Shishitorin, which is basically just Valhalla in Windbreaker. It's just a lot more fun seeing the main character actually do something in his fights and hold his own against some of the strongest characters in his verse, unlike Tokyo Revengers with Takemichi. And Sakura isn't a super overpowered character right from the get-go. It's made clear from the get-go that Sakura has to become a way better fighter if he wants to stand at the very top and become the leader of Bofurin. So the story makes it so Sakura is still a decent fighter, that way he's still entertaining to watch, but at the same time it leaves room for him to grow as a fighter, which of course Tokyo Revengers fails to do with Takemichi. And even if you put all of the fighting stuff aside, I still think that Sakura is just a better written character than Takemichi. Takemichi's character arc really isn't that bad at the start of the story and really up until the Black Dragons arc. But after the Black Dragons arc, he doesn't really progress as a character. He honestly gets sidelined by Mikey as the story mainly revolves around Mikey later on. And sure, Takemichi has his moments here and there later in the story, but it honestly feels like his character arc was just completed during the Black Dragons arc. While Sakura's character arc is a lot more complex and layered than Takemichi's. And I am confidently saying that when I am only caught up to the anime and have not touched the manga whatsoever. So there's still way more of the story that probably explores Sakura as a character, and I am very much looking forward to seeing where Sakura goes as a character. But either way, Sakura overall is just a much better character than Takemichi. But now moving on to the rest of the cast of characters. The Windbreaker and Tokyo Revenger casts are super similar. They almost kind of feel the same. Tokyo Revengers has some really good characters. Mikey, Draken, and really just all of Tomen as a whole, along with some other characters here and there. But for the most part, Windbreakers just has way more complex and better characters. I want to dive into the antagonists, as Tokyo Revengers has absolute dog shit for antagonists. The only antagonist that I liked in Tokyo Revengers was Azina, and Taiju was okay, I guess. But everyone else was just super generic and super forgettable. Especially the two main antagonists of this story, Kiyosaki and Sanzu. At the start of the story, Kiyosaki is this mysterious badass who controls the gang world behind the scenes. He sucks at fighting, but he makes up for it because he's super smart. But later on in the story, he just becomes a really pathetic and just bad character. He has one of the worst motivations that I have ever seen an antagonist have, which his motivation for doing so many horrible things, putting all this effort into controlling basically all of the gang world in Tokyo Revengers, was because he wanted to impress a girl. Yes, that was his motivation, to impress a girl and seem cool. That's it. Legit, probably the most important thing, or one of the most important things when it comes to making a good villain, is for them to have a strong, good motivation. And Kiyosaki obviously does not have that. And to top it all off, Kiyosaki just simply is not a good and enjoyable character whatsoever. The second main antagonist of Tokyo Revengers, Sanzu, is better than Kiyosaki, but he still also sucks. Legit, all I'm going to say about this character is that he shows up out of nowhere, no build up in the final segment of the story, and basically ruins everything in the story. And I don't know anything about the main antagonist in Windbreaker, which is Endo and Takashi, just because I simply haven't read the manga. But I can still compare the two main antagonists of season 1, Choji and Togame, but I can confidently say that Choji and Togame are more complex and better written than any antagonist in Tokyo Revengers. And these two characters are not even the main antagonists of the story. They legit are the antagonists for one arc. I really don't think I have to say anything else just to prove how bad the antagonists in Tokyo Revengers actually are. Now moving into the side characters. Unlike the antagonist, Tokyo Revengers actually has a pretty solid side cast until the final segment of the story. If you couldn't tell by now, I really do hate the final 2 arcs in Tokyo Revengers with a passion. The final arc of Tokyo Revengers pretty much ruins every single good character, especially Mikey. Mikey at the start of Tokyo Revengers was by far my favorite character. But in the last 2 arcs, he gets ruined. For some reason, at the very end of the story, the author decided to give Mikey a fall from grace type of character arc, aka basically Mikey just becomes evil. And unlike other characters from different animes that have had a fall from grace type of character arc, Mikey's just isn't well done. It feels rushed, really just ruins Mikey as a character. And as I already mentioned, this happens a lot in Tokyo Revengers, where a lot of characters got butchered in the final arc of the story. And sure, the Windbreaker characters are nothing too crazy. At the same time though, since I'm only talking about the anime, there hasn't been a lot of time to really give a lot of characters characterization and just more depth and complexity. And I'm sure a lot of the characters and a lot of the side cast will get that eventually in the story. Like Shibuki is a great example. We didn't really know anything about him until season 2 of the anime, and then just really quickly he became a really good character, and I would say he's probably one of my favorite characters in the series. So for the reason that I mentioned with every single character kind of getting butchered in Tokyo Revengers, I would have to give the edge to Windbreakers for their side cast and really just the cast of characters in general being better. Now onto the thing that is arguably most important when it comes to making a manga or anime, the story. Windbreaker is the perfect example of how being simple can be better. And when I say that, I am mainly referencing the time travel aspect of Tokyo Revengers. At first, the time travel stuff is kind of cool. It added a unique aspect to the story, something that has never really been done in Delinquent mangas before. It was fun seeing all of the bad variations of Toman and all of the other gangs, but I think we can all agree what made Tokyo Revengers good was all the cool fights and just seeing all the great character moments and just characters in general. Seeing all the different gangs and all of their powerful members, it was always so much fun. And that's why you watch Tokyo Revengers, not because of the time travel stuff. As I mentioned, at first it worked really well, but towards the end of the story, everything just starts to become way too convoluted with all of the different timelines. And the story takes a huge turn for the worst, with it mainly focusing on supernatural elements. Of course, the time travel stuff played a huge role in the story from the very beginning, but Tokyo Revengers was mainly a Delinquent manga with the time travel stuff kind of being mixed in and pushed to the side. But towards the end, Tokyo Revengers kind of becomes a Delinquent manga where people have superpowers. Takemichi unlocks the ability to see glimpses into the future in this arc. Mikey gets his dark impulse, which basically just makes him overpowered and gives him an insane power boost. It's also revealed that Mikey's older brother was the one to give Takemichi the time leaping ability and had it all along, which that whole entire plot point was just pretty stupid. And you could make the argument that Tokyo Revengers was a great story before its final segment or final couple arcs. Even then, I still really wish that the time travel stuff just wasn't in the story, and I feel like Tokyo Revengers would have been so much better if the time travel stuff wasn't in the story. Which is why I absolutely love Windbreakers. Because it doesn't add any of these unique elements to its story, it's simple and it works. The first arc in Windbreakers, two gangs, Bofurin and Shishitorin, go against each other by picking their top 5 best guys and having them go against each other. We see huge development for so many different characters. We see so many great emotional moments, and we really just see super well done, super fun fights. And the arcs that come after this one follow the same concept. We get a lot of character growth and a lot of great character moments. We see a lot of great emotion in these fights, and like I said, we just get to see a lot of really cool, fun fights. Windbreakers is a simple, delinquent manga that relies on top-tier fighting and complex writing, not supernatural elements. It's everything that I wanted Tokyo Revengers to be. Well, anyways, peace.